Hey guys, Ranchin here, bringing you all another StarCraft commentary. This is going to be the fifth and final set between Flash and Fantasy in the Bigfile MSL semifinals. How awesome has this been? Oh my freaking god. This is just awesome. And after this, we still got Jaedong versus Lights coming in ahead of us after this. So as soon as I get the source vids, I'm going to scamper on right on that. And then this weekend, of course, we have the finals playing out, and I should have time to cast that Monday after the weekend. Probably not during the weekend because I have a full work weekend, so joy for me. But I'll get to that final as soon as it's all possible. Try to get it out fast, all as fast as possible. Finally finished my summer job, so finally got some time for all of this casting stuff. School's starting up in the week, but it won't start bothering me, seeing as the final, the MSL ends just as school starts. And then we shall see what the future shall be. But 2-2, Flash earlier on with a 2-0 advantage now has allowed Fantasy to get back within striking distance, and that was just winner takes all. Simple as that. One win, and we'll see whether Fantasy can do the entire upset. 4, 3, 2, 1, go. Fifth set's going to be a Polaris Rhapsody, the same as the first set, where Flash took out a victory after some very nice, impressive, all over the place macro heavenness. The bottom right hand position playing as Teal, we're going to have Flash letting out a breath and not taking a drink of his motor oil, interestingly enough. At 11 o'clock, playing as Orange, we're going to have Fantasy. Will this be luck, seeing as how he has orange on his t-shirt? I highly doubt that. I think this is all just going to come down to skill, what each player decides to do, what they decide to go for. Not expecting any cheese, really. Both these guys are going to want to just play it safe and not take any risks. We haven't really seen any risky play this entire time. Not really. We have seen Fantasy being a little creative, like I assumed he would be. Of these two, really assumed that Fantasy would be just bringing out the surprises in this one. And he has done that, particularly in the third set, when he went for Battle Cruisers and Valkyries at the end of the game. And forced Flash to a heavy counter with nothing but Wraiths, plop down like 8 or 9 starports, and in the end, Flash just didn't have anything else other than Wraiths. And despite some valiant fighting and picking off an entire, 8 or 10 Battlecruiser fleet, still not quite enough to come out ahead. I'm surprised I never see any of these guys wear any wrist straps. So you'd think, they all would have carpal tunnel up the wazoo, but doesn't seem to be the case. It does look like both these guys thinking of going for 14 CCs. This is a 2-player map, but the rush distances are very far, that neither of them are expecting the other to go for anything funky, so it does seem like might be seeing... Okay, never mind. At least not in Fantasy's case. Gonna go for 1 Rax and put down Refinery at the same time. Same exact thing on the opposite side, though, although I don't see the Refinery yet, so we might be seeing actually Flash going for 1 Rax in an Expo, as he likes to do. Just delayed barracks into expansion. And really, it's come out okay for him, in this game. He's lost the last 2 times he's done it, but I do believe he did in the second set as well, where he came out ahead. This is not a bad build at all, though. It still allows you to put down, it allows you to get at least a Marine out there, allows you to start working on your refinery and your factory while you're putting down your command center. And Flash also plays it safe in that he never just builds it down the natural expansion, he floats it off instead. He builds the command center inside of his own base and then floats it off just to add a little bit of safety, just to make sure he doesn't get early pushed, because he would be facing, say, a 2-fact build. This would be 2-fact push early on from Fantasy, say, he would really be in a lot of trouble facing that. And Fantasy has put down her fighting, but not really minding anything off of it. Seems like he just wants to put down his own commander, seeing what Flash is going for. Seems like exactly that's what he's going to. Also going to float his barracks, maybe to do a partial wall, maybe just float off and act as a scout. And just not putting his command center. And he's, of course, knowing what Flash is going to do, he can just plant it down without at all having to float it off. So their command centers really will start mining at almost at very, very likened times. But just it wasn't really mining anything from refinery, so we're going to see how it's all going to be tech-wise. Should have some of his SCVs back on that refinery to start working on his factory. On the opposite side, should see Flash not to let him zone. Refinery and Flash just sticking with that SCV and they're spotting the factory timing. Gonna get pushed back on the opposite side of his own factory. So yeah, pretty much, even though the builds are slightly different, the timings all seem to turn up pretty much the same. Might see Flash start mining from his natural expansion just a little bit ahead of Fantasy, but we're gonna see whether that's actually that big a factor. We're gonna see Fantasy now put down his second factory, so we might be seeing some vultures from him to start things off. Is a player that likes his volts, likes to utilize his vultures fairly well. Likes that kind of stuff. Isn't that factory a little bit off target? I don't know. It feels like it's, I don't know. Who am I to judge? But I don't know. Looking at it, looks kind of awkward. Several Marines out there for Flash, just kind of going out, spotting, making sure there's nothing across the bridge should be worried about. And 2 factories on the way there for Fantasy. Don't see a machine shop start things off. Is going to pull out 1 vulture. Might put down a machine shop as he does that, so he can go and work on his speed upgrades. That's generally what we see the first time. Fantasy getting a scout inside of Flash's base. Gonna spot a starport on the way and a second starport down here. So Flash is gonna go for 2 ports. The SCV gets killed by the vulture, but nice spot there from Fantasy. Going to put down his armory and academy the second that happens, so we're going to be seeing some Goliaths coming out. Very nice spot here for him. Reacting beautifully. Flash, unfortunately, did have his Marines out, so would have been able to prevent that scout if he had his Marines back home, but unfortunately for him, letting Fantasy get that scout right now, just has 2 vultures out there, should be working on his Goliath as we speak, as well. 2 vultures going to go out there and pick off 1 vulture of Flash. Actually, never mind, actually skips with his life. Marines also kind of just coming in across the field. Flash apparently hoping to catch Fantasy off guard here. Vultures are away from home. One of that Marine that was there for defense is going to get picked off. 1 single vulture defend at this point. I think Fantasy is going to come back with his other vultures, utilizing micro very nicely, and these Marines way too slow to really be able to do anything. Flash on the opposite side has done a great job of walling himself up, but one of the supply depots might actually get taken down if he's not careful. And SCV's actually being forced off the line now for Fantasy to fight back these Marines and that 1 vulture. 1 more hit on that vulture will go down. SCV's trying to at the least push him back, trying to get a hit on him, but not quite managing to. There we go. Finally, a nice little fake out, just in and out type of thing from Fantasy as he continues to macro. Should be having some Goliaths out there. The initial Wraith is out, and Cloak is being worked down, so Flash is just going to go with this. Is going to hoping to take to the air. Is going to be able to hoping to take air superiority. Still don't see a single Goliath out there. There we go. There's a Goliath out there for Fantasy. Shoot off. His compensation's hitting, and right now Wraiths won't have any cloaking though, so this 1 single Wraith really won't be able to accomplish too much. Picking off 1 damaged SCV. He's just going to try to focus on those Goliaths. Going to come into play. 2 SCVs go down. Both of them damaged early on from engaging that vulture. But Wraith for now going to be forced back, and only 1 Goliath back home. Fantasy at least should be putting down at least 1 or a couple more Goliaths just in case. Gonna go in there, scan the second factory on the way and that initial siege tank, while Fantasy actually goes and expands the local position and smartly enough has a Goliath there to help defend, because really very vulnerable positions when you try to put down expansions. Vulture's just gonna come in and pick off the SCVs as that happens. Not quite sure whether Flash is gonna spot that or not. Fantasy can spot that or not. Flash, spot the 12 base. Wraith's not going to come in. No comm sets coming down. 2 Goliaths just get himself ready in position. And still don't see a comm set in there. Vulture's just coming in and getting some decent damage done, picking up several SCVs. And you can see that natural expansion Fantasy doesn't really have much in the way of saturation here. No turrets able to defend themselves. So Flash is getting some decent damage done with these Wraiths. And I think Fantasy just wasted that comm set station on those factories. So now he doesn't have a comm station to force back these Wraiths with. Wraiths not going to try to be as audacious. Are they going to try to go for the tank? No, just going to try to focus down on those SCVs. Finally getting comm-satted. Actually, I think one of those Wraiths run out of cloak, so he's going to be forced back. Flash, very fresh cloak for him, so he's not going to be able to accomplish too much. Wraith's going to come to 12 o'clock position, got to spot that out, but no. Now we also have Charon boosters on those Goliaths, so Goliath's going to be able to force him back fairly well. Let's see, 4th and 5th factory down there for Flash. He's going to completely transition into ground, just trying to have a little bit of aerial superiority. On the opposite side, we still see only 3 factories, but Fantasy is trying to reestablish the 12 position, trying to get some more saturation on his base, because they did lose a lot of SCVs. Flash, meanwhile, has gotten himself a huge tank number out there. I'm not really quite sure whether Fantasy has enough to face this. He has Vultures and Goliaths, but in a siege war, he would lose at this point. Doesn't have quite the siege tanks to face off against this, I feel, but I really don't think we're going to be seeing any heavy aggressive maneuvers from Flash. He's just going to stick with a few wraiths he has, and then just utilize his starports later on to start amassing dropships when the game enters that stage. Has some vultures at the front as well. Not quite sure whether they have mines. Don't have mines. They're going to try to get up this ramp. Going to be unsuccessful, but everybody's going to start picking off a lot of SCVs, forcing the SCVs off the line. Fantasy going to be forced to run back with his entire troop from the 12 o'clock position. Goliath leading the charge. And some tanks in there as well. Meanwhile, now Flash is going to come in close, and it seems like Fantasy just doesn't have siege mode on him because the Vulture's still not going to be able to get up the ramp, but a lot of damage done economically because they're forcing those SCVs off the lines. A lot of damage done, and Fantasy just has no answer to this yet. No siege engines going to try to come in close. Goliath at the front, Vultures as well. 3 siege tanks, so he actually should be able to clear this number up. Does clear up the tanks. There we go. Last one goes kablam. And now Flash should be moving in with his vultures towards the 12 o'clock position. One vulture there, but that's not going to be able to help too much. The vultures at the 12 o'clock position going to go in there and start killing a lot of SCVs. So Fantasy, despite getting this early base, is just spread out a little thin. So he's forced at all times to defend more than anything else. Flash actually playing a little bit like Fantasy's been playing him this entire match, putting down mines everywhere, slowing down, kind of helping his own retreat. And now going to put down his own base at 6 o'clock position, which Fantasy has spotted with an SCV, but still Flash doing a great job of pressuring Fantasy at all times. Definitely does not want to lose after having come 2-0 ahead. Defending champion wants to regain it, regain his title again, and wants to. I'm betting even for himself, he wants a repeat of Flash versus Jaenon. I think most people want a repeat of Flash versus Jaenon. I think I'm one of the few people that wants a repeat of Fantasy versus Jaenon from the, what was it, Batu OSL. My God, that was a good OSL final. Let's see, 2 hidden vultures at the upper right-hand position, interestingly enough, for Fantasy. He's only still producing from 3 factories, just trying to desperately continue to get his economy up. Just not going to put down his 4th and 5th, maybe even his 6th alongside as well. But he needs to start producing a little bit more because he's going to be in trouble. Flash is going to start working on his maneuverability. Has some dropships coming out there. Still don't say a single starport out there for Fantasy. So he might be the victim of some heavy drops if he's not careful at all. Seems like there's going to be a drop coming in on his main. He's just adding in factories right now. Doesn't really have that many forces back home. Now going to spot this coming in. Dropship. Going to plant down some vultures. Oh, that's going to be a lot of it's going to be a lot of delayed factories right there. Also planting something right behind the mineral line. Vulture's going to be forced back home. We're going to try to do as much damage as possible. Flash, at the very least, being annoying, planting down vultures across everything, trying to pick off a few SCVs, trying to slow down buildings. So just one vulture here, one vulture there, one vulture there, one vulture there. Absolutely beautiful drop ship play here from Flash. Disrupting more than really damage dealing. Slowing down. I think he managed to slow down at least 1 or 2 factories. Slow down the supply depot, slow down more. Now he's also moving in from the right side, trying to get to his 12 o'clock position. Planting down mines beautifully. 1 siege tank ready at this point from Fantasy. And he's looking like he's in a lot of trouble. Managing to pick off the mines at least before they blow up his last tank. But look at that, 5 or 6 tanks from Flash on the right side. And Fantasy desperately trying to reinforce to put up his own siege position, but he's just not in a very good location for this. Flash also has those vultures just to run in and give himself siege range. Unfortunately for Fantasy, he's in a very bad position here. Oh man, getting all of his tanks pulled off, and despite that barracks being used as a spotter, just not a good position for him. Is going to be floating off his command center, and Fantasy looking like he's in trouble. Flash is meanwhile his entire game being the aggressor, forcing Fantasy away, not allowing him to get close to his own bases because he knows Fantasy loves a harassment style of play. Has siege tanks ready to defend, to make sure that no vultures can pass by. Has vultures at home, 6 o'clock position. Knows that that's most likely going to be Fantasy's target. Gonna push back a little bit with some of his tanks just to try to take his side on the map. Vulture's gonna try to run in. Gonna face some siege tank fire. No way for Fantasy to get past that high ground defense into that 6 o'clock position. So Flash is going to stay on these 3 bases for now. He's going to want to, I think, transition towards the lower left-hand position when the opportunity gives itself, because he is taking that high ground. So might as well transition the defense into the lower left-hand, that double gas when he finds he needs it. Should have some more dropships on the way as well. And when he wants to start, mass-producing tanks and dropships and Goliaths, he will most likely go for those dropships. Right now, just focusing again on his Wraith number, wants to keep them out across the field. Only has 1 control tower down there, so he's just focusing on the race at the moment to possibly pick off dropships when they come into play. Also give him spotting and just trying to find tanks out in the open field, because it doesn't seem like Fantasy was really focusing at all on Goliath. He's hoping to kind of catch him off guard with some heavy vulture numbers. Well, Fantasy actually going to expand at the mineral only on the 9 o'clock position, trying to keep base ahead of Flash, trying to